Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. In case you're just joining us, this is Daybreak, and today we told you we are going to be talking about the transition to junior secondary school and also schools reopening in just under 3 weeks to come by the tail end of this month. And a lot is to be addressed. The elephant in the room now is the junior secondary school readiness that is supposed to be domiciled in primary schools. Are primary schools across the country ready? Do we have teachers? Are they trained? Do we have the facilities that are needed to successfully implement this and to offer quality education to our learners? Some of the questions that have been raised by stakeholders, parents and learners alike, and we are going to try and address some of those issues in this great conversation that begins right now.
And we are, as earlier mentioned, with the Member of Parliament for Tinderet constituency, who as well is the chairperson of the Education Committee of the National Assembly. Honorable Julius Meli, thanks for your time. Dr. John Mugo is an educationist and commentator on education in the country. Thanks for your time. It's all appreciated. And may I begin with you, Honorable Julius Meli. What's your view of the road ahead? Because there seems to be multi-layer of complexities with regards to junior secondary schools, the guidelines by the Ministry of Education as to the assessment that is to be done between the 9th of January to the 20th of January. And then, holistically, the new rules that schools will be coming up with, including the new uniforms and the management of junior secondary school learners. I mean, how is the road ahead for the stakeholders?
Yes, thank you, Abdikadir. I think, let me say this, that the road ahead is quite clear and good, in the sense that CBC as a curriculum is actually best for this country. I just want to mention that there might be some teething issues, but one of the very clear issues about CBC is that it actually looks at the competencies of the child, it looks at the talents of the child, it also looks into how to make education quite accessible to the parents. You've noted that as we move ahead, the issue of domiciling even the junior secondary in the primary section is actually to make it as accessible as possible to parents. Noting that in the earlier period, you know that for students to go to secondary school, it has been pegged on even the bed capacity of the boarding schools. Okay. It has brought a lot of congestion. But as we move now in grade 7, it is only a matter of actually having the children in the primary school, having the quality teachers, and I want to tell you that there is this country has enough in terms of skills of the teachers whom we have. So the only thing is to reorient them, to capacity build them, and to make sure that the facilities that are required are actually put in place. In fact, the CBC is going to make education for this country very, very cheap in terms of access and in terms of costs.
Dr. Mugo, I don't know whether you read from the same script. I mean, there's no doubt that the competency-based curriculum is a beautiful promise. And for those who still doubt, at least what we can say is that the train seems like has already left the station. I don't know, if you look at the way ahead, do you get the same sense of satisfaction that we are good to go? Many still are asking, are we ready? So are we ready from where you sit?
Thank you so much. I think, first, it's been unfortunate, and I can empathize with the Kenya Kwanza government, because we knew that junior secondary was to come, in 2016 when we began this implementation. But I think a lot of indecisiveness happened along the way, and now children cannot wait. They now have to go to junior secondary. I think the decision to domicile it in primary school was the right one, because why should we sink money in infrastructure, in concrete, constructing classrooms that will not be enough, when we know that the key thing for CBC to succeed, I think, are two things. One is a teacher. And I agree with Honorable Meli that we have enough teachers. What I think is needed is that we need the right teachers. I am a teacher trainer myself, and I know that CBC is an attitude change, is a mind shift. It's a new philosophy, a new way of educating. It's a teacher ceding power. And so we know that even if we say we'll take them for training, training and acquisition of knowledge and skills, that can be shifted. But the change in mind shift, in attitude of teachers is needed. So there's a lot to do, I think, in terms of calling on our teachers that this is about our children. Hey, because with a teacher who believes in CBC, in this new way of educating, even if they have children under a tree with them, CBC is now offering the opportunity to use locally available materials for the teacher to innovate and invent more than what the other curriculum was offering. The other key thing that needs to happen is a parent. And junior secondary, the objective of junior secondary is a transitional moment where the teacher, the parent, and the child sit together to identify the talent of this person, look at their interest in the future, in the next 10 years. What is this person best doing? And so that consultation has to happen. And the person at the middle of that consultation is first the teacher who has to call the parent, and the parent also who has to understand that they have a role to play, not just taking children to school, but also participating in making decisions for them. And so the decision to make it largely day, I think, was very necessary, because if we had domiciled this in secondary schools, then we would have a child traveling from Mandera to Kiambu, where Alliance is. That parent in Mandera has no fare to make several trips to Kiambu. So I think parents would need to understand this, and teachers would need to own it for CBC to succeed from where we are. Okay.
And Honorable Julius Meli, my colleague Safin will take us through the teacher recruitment plan by the Teacher Service Commission, and this is a pertinent matter to you and members of the Committee of the National Assembly that you chair. And towards the last meeting where you had with the TSC, and so heated it was that you directed them to come with clear answers as to the plan, as to how they are going to actualize the recruitment of teachers. But when you talk about the clear road ahead, as you have said, which is very clear, to many then, they expect the government to get off the rose-tinted glasses, because there is the infrastructure challenge, and the guideline by the ministry says that if a school does not meet the 60% threshold in terms of the assessment, then learners will be moved to a school that is in close proximity to that for the junior secondary school learners. I mean, if then this is the case, how will this be? Is it not having a compounding effect, because not all schools are well equipped in the country, or are they in better infrastructure stage?
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just say this. For this program or CBC to be actually implemented, there is an aspect of quality, and the infrastructure is central to this. As my colleague Dr. Muga said, one of the central things to this implementation is the state of the infrastructure in schools. One of the failures of the previous administration was trying to move CBC to secondary school, going to build 2 classes in secondary school, the existing secondary schools, and leaving 2 classes in the existing primary schools. As you know, 844 has 8 classes. When you are at grade 6, you have grade 7, class 7 and class 8 classes which are free. Now when we are bringing it to the primary school, we are utilizing the 2 classes. 2, we decided as a committee to actually ask the Ministry of Education to do an assessment of the suitability of the schools to the implementation of the programs. Because ultimately we want to have one school system in Kenya where a child starts from PP1 to grade 12. Ultimately, in the long run. The reason now why they are doing this assessment is to ensure that the curriculum is implemented very well. I know there are certain, across the country, we have different challenges. We have different levels of development. You will go to a school, for example, in Tana River, for example, or in any part of this country, you will get the student population there, for example, is less than 100 from grade 1 to grade 6. Yet in the neighboring school, and yet they do not have enough facilities, and the teachers also are not enough. So what we told the ministry as a Committee of Education, ensure that this kind of implementation is actually done quite well. What do we consider? We consider the number of teachers, we consider the facilities available. So you can easily merge 2 schools to neighboring schools, ensure that they have enough teachers for grade 7 alone. And as we move along, you build facilities in this new school so that in the next 1 or 2 years, the same school can revert back. I think you remember in those days when students were not able to do CPE or KCP in the same school as it is developing. So that's exactly what the ministry is trying to do. Two, there is the issue of teacher capacity building. As Mugo said, it is an integral part of any education system. If you want to implement CBC, first of all, you need a teacher's attitude, the parent's attitude. You need the child. You need the capacity of trying to reorient it, because the curriculum in grade 7 and 8, yes, as much as it is new, this teacher has to be taken through the various levels of teaching and learning and the skills and the competencies the child is supposed to acquire. So it is actually very important. That is why, as they move ahead, the government has to really put a lot of money in the teacher capacity building. Yes.
And we will be talking about the money and the numbers that have been projected by education experts. Specifically speaking, the Parliamentary Budget Office gave an estimate of over 630 billion shillings to fund some of the proposals by the Kenya Kwanza government. We look into that. But let me just take you through the recruitment plan by the Teacher Service Commission that seeks to bridge the teacher shortage in the country. And TSC received authority from the National Treasury to recruit about 30,000 teachers in the country. And the teachers are supposed to be reporting to work at the tail end of this month. And in the financial year 2022-2023, the Commission was allocated a budget to recruit 6,000 teacher interns, 4,000 for secondary and 2,000 for primary. So in total, the teachers who are supposed to be recruited comes to about 36,000. And on Saturday, the 10th of December last year, the Commission advertised about 35,550 vacancies. This is how this is going to be distributed. So 9,000 of those posts on permanent and pensionable terms of service are going to be for secondary school teachers who are to be posted to junior secondary schools, 10,000 posts on permanent and pensionable terms for primary school teachers, 21,550 for teacher interns who are going to go to junior secondary schools, and 4,000 posts for teacher interns in primary schools. And of course, just looking specifically into the distribution of vacancies for junior secondary schools, the Commission distributed the vacancies for junior secondary schools based on grade 7 classes in the country, which they approximate to be about 30,550 grade 7 classes in the entire country, assuming we go by the numbers that we have about 30,000 primary schools. So if each primary school has one class of grade 7, that makes 30,550. So accordingly, the Commission has allocated one teacher per class for all the 30,550 grade 7 classes countrywide. And of course, the distribution of vacancies is going to be done proportionately. I could take you through the details of this, but that's in a nutshell how they seek to do this. But at least I guarantee that every grade 7 class in every primary school is going to get one teacher. And I'm just curious, Mheshimiwa, at this point, one would feel this is sort of like a drop in the ocean. One teacher per school. How is this going then to bridge the teacher shortage that was existing even before? Initially, it was put at about 116,000. It is a problem that we have had in our country, not yesterday, not a day before that. It is something that has been perennial. How are you going to address this increased demand of teachers?
Thank you so much. And I think your curiosity was the curiosity of the committee, that how do you actually recruit or employ one teacher per classroom?
Yeah.
We tasked the Teacher Service Commission and we asked them the same question. And actually, what we asked as a committee on education is that there is a very large pool of very educated teachers in the primary school. And that's exactly what we told them. The kind of assessment they are supposed to do currently is to assess how many teachers have gotten graduate skills or have actually graduated to P1, from P1 to graduates. Two, some teachers in primary schools have master's degrees. This is the pool of teachers we asked them, we tasked them, that apart from the one teacher they are recruiting now, they need to go back, look at the competencies of the existing teachers, take them through the capacity building, and have enough teachers. Because grade 7 alone, they have 12
teaching areas.
Teaching areas. So no one teacher can cover the 12 teaching areas, you know that. So with this pool of existing teachers in the primary school, with the existing teachers in the secondary school, now the Teacher Service Commission is supposed to come up with a very clear plan on how the same teachers can be harnessed, their skills can be harnessed in the same school, and the same skills can be harnessed for the teachers, especially in the neighboring secondary schools. Because as we are currently, if you are going to post one teacher for 12 teaching areas, I think you need to be an angel or a miracle to cover those areas. That's exactly what we gave them, and that is one of the things that we shall be looking for as a committee to ensure quality and to ensure standards are maintained and ensure that the teaching learning process goes on well. Okay. That's exactly what we are asking them to do.
Okay, Dr. Mugo, there is the policy of the 100% transition that the government says must be implemented, yet there are challenges that are foreseen by many experts and educationists in the country, including you. For example, the readiness in time for laboratories for the junior secondary schools, consistency in the implementation of the junior secondary school curriculum, the teaching, and in this case, learning and assessment areas, and amongst the other raft of assessment guidelines that the Ministry of Education has provided. I mean, then if the threshold is 45% learners for a junior secondary school class, and then you have one teacher, isn't it a failure on the part of the Teacher Service Commission?
I think it's good to look at it from a contextual point of view, as Honorable Mele has said. First of all, the current standard for primary schools is a teacher per class. And so, which means that that same primary school where the grade 7 will be, will have had theoretically one teacher available, other teacher. And so, if we were to count the numbers, then I think we'd count them as 2.
Yeah.
The one that was freed, because now there won't be standard 7, there'll only be standard 8, and this other additional one. But I think first is to appreciate the 30,000, because I think this is the largest recruitment we've ever had as a one-off. And looking at the education budget, I think it's important to look at that context. The main thing for me is how we will prepare the teachers in the primary school, especially those that Honorable Mele says have that minimum requirement. How are we going to train them? Are we going to train them in a rushed way that they won't even get to integrate the essence and understand this philosophy and new way of educating? Or are we investing fully to ensure that these teachers are well prepared? And if this training has not even started now, and we are in week 2 of January, when is it going to start? So I think those are the questions probably we need to look at.
So I'll take you back to where we started. Do you think we are ready then? Because it's just, you've said 2 weeks
Less than 20 days?
Yeah. And we are asking very pertinent questions about the readiness of the teachers who are supposed to be the pilots of this particular process. Do you think we are at a good place to open doors of junior secondary schools for, is it about 1.2 million learners if the 100% transition is to be a success?
Yeah, more than 1.2 million. I think we have no choice. These children can't be asked to stay at home because we are not ready. So starting from that point, I think it is urgent from where I sit to have this finalized on how are these and when are these teachers going to be trained. We know now actually that the money allocated to training, the 2 billion, if I was given that money, I think one can leverage on technology. We sink a lot of money in workshops and all that, and we don't see the value. We have a lot of innovation. Many corporates now are having weekly trainings of teachers, you know, through virtual labs. So I don't know, I have not seen the plan for training of the teachers. I have not seen the plan for preparing the parents, because parents are also asking, what is our role? Is our role in junior secondary going to be different? And who is going to train the parent? Because we know the Teacher Service Commission is in charge of teachers and there must be something cooking. But how about the parent? Because if the parent also don't execute their role and mandate in educating and supporting junior secondary, then we won't succeed. So I think from where I sit, I would say we are not ready. I think there's a lot to do before we can say that this junior secondary is going to succeed. We need, I think, to handle this with a lot of urgency so that the identification of those teachers that Honorable Mele is talking about and having them commence the training even on Monday. So that by the time these junior secondary pupils are reporting, these teachers are ready. Because the other schools, the primary schools are opening on 23rd. And which means if we train beyond the 23rd, then those in primary school will be suffering because they'll be missing teachers in classrooms going for training. So that's I think where I am coming from. I think there's need for urgency and an overall way of preparing teachers and parents for junior secondary.
Honorable Mele, because this is also quite a good area, because according to the Parliamentary Budget Office, the Kenya Kwanza administration will need 238 billion Kenya shillings to bridge the 116,000 teacher deficit, which has been an existing gap over time and a sort of perpetual continuity. I mean, that again places the Teacher Service Commission on the spot. Here is also another idea that was flouted during a meeting at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, a meeting that was chaired by the CS Machogu. And the idea was floated that some teachers in present high schools who have been trained on CBC would be asked, if needed, to teach some subjects in junior secondary schools. It then seems that there's a lot of borrowing from the other part, but here you have 32,000 public primary schools, 10,000 secondary schools. It then means that when you substitute that, there will be a vacuum on the other end. I mean, how will this gap be ever addressed? It seems to be a continuous one.
Yes, Ayub, as a teacher, first of all, let me tell you that teaching is a seamless process. What we want to develop as a country, and that is what the Kenya Kwanza administration is trying to do, is to develop a teaching service that will have an expert running across the school system. So that you'll realize that a teacher who is a grade 4 teacher, for example, has competencies that are able to handle the children in grade 4, 5, 6, that's for example. When you come to grade 7, 8, 9, the same teacher should be able to teach all the way to grade 12. But now we are coming from a system where the education system is compartmentalized, where you as Ayub and Mugo knows that you are supposed to go to ECD in primary, grade 1, 2, PP 1 and 2, that is under county government and a different teacher. When you come to grade 1 to 6, that is the primary school, it is under a different person. When you go to grade 7, 8, 9, is another compartment, up to grade 11, 10, 11, 12. What I'm saying is this. That is what we want actually to destroy in this country, where we want now to come up with a school where I am in grade 6, I can be handled across by a teacher who can teach me competently the skills, and they can run across this the school system. 2, we have now the issues of teachers coming in. As you have rightly put it, the teachers are not enough, as we say now. But to ask who can teach where is actually very easy to know, because every head teacher and every education officer across the sub-counties know the capacity of their staff. Even within this, the system that you have, you know who is competent for what, who is competent for what. So when we have these teachers, if they are in secondary school, and you bring them to come and train, a trainer for the grade 1 to grade 6 or grade 7, 8, and 9, it will not take 1 month or 2 months. These are actually honing the skills of an existing graduate. I think you've seen it even in the banking sector and even in the other sectors where capacity building is done regularly. And it does not bring down a system. Even in the developed world, every school system has to undergo capacity building after some time. That is why we have what we call teachers' professional development. That is supposed honing the skill all the time, through time. So I want to say that as we move forward, we as an education committee has tasked the government. Can you identify? Can you move forward? Can you let us know this is the number of teachers? The 238 billion that you are talking about is actually for a span of 5 years. As we have said, they are recruiting 35,000 now. And that is why we want the teachers. That's why the government is recruiting the 10,000 PNP, the 35 interns, so that you can bridge the gap at a lesser cost. Because we know, we are living in this country, all of us, that we are actually at tough economic times. And to really get 238 billion at a go is not almost impossible.
Thank you.
But within the 5 years, we shall reach there.
Okay.
Yeah. Seems like there's going to be what you say, borrowing from one, borrow teachers here, borrow laboratories, you can share facilities here, there. But we'll talk about how practical that is. We continue with this conversation right here on Daybreak as we talk about the state of preparedness of the country to open doors for learners who are supposed to be transitioning to junior secondary school as schools reopen at the end of this month. And we'll be inviting and, sampling some of your views as well. If in case you're a parent, you're a caregiver, or just a concerned stakeholder, have a question concerning this subject, do share that with us on our social media handles. They are open.
That is at Citizen TV Kenya, at Ayub Abdikadir, at Safin_Cheng. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak, and we'll be sampling those feedback later towards the tail end of this broadcast. Stay tuned.